Hi, I'm Emily Wilmson. Welcome to Full Circle. We're here today to talk about sustainability and parks. And with me on my left is J.R. Snelzer, who's Director of Parks. Welcome, J.R.
Hi, Emily.
And on my right, we have Bill Wardy, who is Manager of Parks. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Emily.
Now, I hear you've been with the park system for 37 years.
Quite a few years, yes.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about, I want to know a little bit about what each of you do before we get into talking about some of our fabulous parks here in Fort Collins.
Sure.
So tell me about your job.
Well, my job mostly is the operations and maintenance and the crews in the field, the folks that get the job done, basically. So that'd be the cemetery division, the parks division, the golf division, and that's pretty much my primary responsibility.
Okay, great. And JR, you're the Director of Parks. You have a much bigger purview, or what's your job?
Well, the Parks Department as such is actually made up of a lot of divisions. Bill's responsible for 3 of those. Okay. We also have in the Parks Department the Forestry Division, and we also have the Gardens on Spring Creek. Okay. So as you can see, there's 5 divisions that make up the Park Department.
Okay, great. So how many parks do we have? What's our park system like? I know we have a great system here, but can you tell us a little bit about what the system consists of?
Well, we have in excess of 55 community parks and neighborhood parks combined. We have small pocket parks, and we have about 34 miles of trails. We have 2 cemeteries, 3 golf courses, and of course the Gardens on Spring Creek. So it's a lot of the land mass that we have for municipal operations.
So with that much land, how does parks fit into our sustainability measures at the city? Tell us a little bit about how are you trying to meet the city's sustainability goals?
Well, the Parks Department as a whole, including all the divisions, takes the sustainable practices that we try to utilize as our best management practices, because we feel sustainability is how the future is going to be. We need to leave the park system better than the current operations are handling it. So we constantly are looking for new and better ways of practices to do this. And that's where Bill's role comes in. He's where the rubber meets the road in the ground.
Yeah, and Bill, talk a little bit about that on a day-to-day basis. What is it that we're doing in our park system to ensure that we're meeting those goals?
Well, as you know, the city has now 11 sustainability goals, and the number 1 is greenhouse gas reduction. There's water conservation, there's resource management, solid waste diversion, what we try to do is incorporate our daily goals, our yearly goals, our daily goals, or I'll try to reduce use of fuel, or try to divert solid waste from the dump, and maybe we're into composting. Mm-hmm. And we just look at a bunch of different ways. Districting is a great example of what we have done when the Parks Department started to grow, and we were all stationed out at City Park, and we couldn't get out to the south end of town without spending 15 minutes perhaps driving. So now we have satellite maintenance shops at Foss Creek Community Park, okay, Spring Canyon Community Park. We're planning one for the new Southeast Community Park, and we have a downtown shop that does a lot of the botanical that you see downtown core area, because that's something else we have. We have medians and streetscapes, 63 miles of different medians and streetscapes, and we have a downtown team that takes care of the alleys, Old Town Square, all the flower pots on the corners. So we're not able to all work out of the same shop. Plus, with the districting, the amount of fuel we save and the efficiency of folks being on the ground working instead of driving has been critical for our success.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know this time of year people are seeing all the great work of your crews out there, especially downtown. It's beautiful. The flowers are up, and right, that takes a lot of people. We got to remember that takes somebody working pretty hard to make that happen every year, right?
Absolutely. I mean, just in the Parks Department, the division, 4th of July, the month of July, when we're the most employees we have, we're close to 90 hourly employees, and our 30 or so classified staff that we have year-round. So it's a pretty big operation.
Now, watering that's a good segue to watering. I know we're really into water conservation at the city, and obviously we need water to keep our golf courses looking nice and to water those flowers and all of our miles of parks and acres of parks. Talk a little bit about how we approach water conservation in parks.
Well, that's where some of the better planning has been done in the past. Early on, folks before me, before JR, folks in park planning and development, we knew that we couldn't live off domestic taps like a home tap or the size of those. So we used the irrigation ditches. We use river water, or we use Colorado Big Thompson water. So 80% of our parkland, golf courses, everything that we irrigate is raw water, untreated water. So that and the savings right there is immense. Plus it's much more sustainable. It doesn't have to go through the water treatment plant, of course.
Right.
So that's a big start right there.
And one of our goals, as you're probably aware of, is trying to maximize that 80% to 90 or 95. We'd love to reach 100% at some point, but that becomes, the last little bit is always the most difficult to reach. But we are constantly looking at better ways of doing things, especially our water management program.
So how do you work with maybe some of these bigger picture goals like reducing greenhouse gas emissions in general? I mean, how, water conservation is easy for people to understand, but how does parks help out with those kinds of goals for the city?
Well, I think with all goals, there's a 30,000 foot level where you work at a policy that JR and I are looking at how do we strategically position our departments, divisions to be able to be successful. And then it goes all the way down to the frontline worker. So we talk about those goals. So we have opportunities of conversions of equipment. Currently we have electric utility vehicles that you see downtown, but every community park now, every satellite shop, see we could plug those in. We didn't have to have a gas vehicle travel 20 minutes. We can have the vehicle plug in there and go away. And that's a lot about what we did with golf. Golf, we're all electric, or we're all gas carts. And in the last 4.5 years, we started with Southridge, went to Cowndale. Now this year, the first time ever, City Park will have electric golf carts. And that in itself is it's an amazing deal because it was incremental. We had to find funds so that we could convert the buildings. I mean, there's a capital cost up front, and I think the payback when we looked at triple bottom line early on, there were like 8 to 9 years because how much you can save on fuel, and then of course you save over hundreds of metric tons, annually by converting 100. What do we have? 165, JR?
Yep. Well, and part of this is that we really were trying to resolve this big issue of how do we utilize technology, and technology constantly changing. And so for Bill's sake and my sake, I think we're trying to stay on top of the new technology that's coming into play. The electric carts at the golf courses alone, we're estimating are going to save 8,500 gallons of gasoline over a seasonal time period. We are currently looking at maybe what if we put solar recharge systems on the roofs of these. We're trying to stay on the cusp of technology. We've converted some of our leaf blowers, and those high two-cycle noisy things to electric. Electric chainsaws. So we're constantly looking at what is new in the marketplace and how is that technology going to help us succeed and reach these goals.
Going back to greenhouse gas reduction again being the number one goal, because see, that was it. The city said it in 2005 that by 2020 we'd have a 20% reduction. In 2005, we've already added, since then, 2 community parks, neighborhood parks. There was no way that with the growth of our system, without us doing some strategic planning, whether it be satellite shops, conversion of vehicles. Currently, I mean, the iPhone has been fantastic. We have lighting systems at our ball diamonds. We can currently now sit at home and get a call from Youth Baseball or CSU Rams that play at City Park South or any of our user groups, and we know, say their games, they used to stay on to 10 o'clock because that's the curfew. But they could say, okay, we're done at 9:30, all safe. With our iPhones, we can shut those lights off. We do that, and even with our irrigation central controllers, you can control them from home. There's starting to be a lot of technology that we can bring into the field, and that's when you asked before, how does the regular employee participate? That's how they participate.
Okay, that's great.
And part of this, just so you're aware of it, is that it gets filtered down to the line people, even the seasonals. It is an ingrained within our department that that is critical for us to be a sustainable operation. And that comes about from people like Bill and like Tim Buchanan and like Michelle Provoznik over at the Gardens. It comes from them first and gets down to the line people.
Okay, and maybe repeat again who some of those folks are that you
Well,
just mentioned.
Bill Werdy, our parks
Yeah.
manager.
Right.
Tim Buchanan is the city forester and oversees the forestry division, and Michelle Provoznik, who is the gardens manager, oversees the gardens operation. And those gardens operation now reaches into the community and into the park system through the community garden program that's in place now.
Okay, and yeah, actually talk a little bit about that because it seems like we're doing more community gardens around town. Is that part of our?
I think that has
strategy?
become very, very popular, and it's very important to this community. And it's a give back program, obviously, because a portion of all of that is given back to the food banks of Larimer County. It came to us several years ago, and the program thought they'd like to try to have this in community parks, maybe expand it over time, and that's what we're looking at right now. But I can tell you we now have 4 major community gardens and community parks, and there's a waiting list on every one of them. So that tells us that there's the need out there, that people really want to do this. Gardening is a way of reaching back into the earth and their roots, I guess, and people like to get their hands dirty. And to see something grow and produce something is, I think, very beneficial to a lot of people's psyche.
And that's local food has been more recently added to the city's sustainability goals. Is that how our Parks Department comes in contact with that particular?
I think we were in contact with it long before that became a major vision of the community, because we built the Garden of Eaton many years ago at the Gardens on Spring Creek. And part of that is the process of growing local sustainable food products. And we built a kitchen, and we show people how they can use those products and enjoy them. And we, at that time, were giving back to the Larimer County Food Bank. So we were kind of ahead of that in the Gardens on Spring Creek.
Okay, so the rest of us are catching up to you finally.
Well, yeah, I
Sort of.
think it's just taken off more, let's put it that way. Catching
Right.
up is probably not the right term.
Right.
Well, I was just going to say, put a plug in for the Gardens on Spring Creek, because they do fantastic work. Their staff are wonderful folks, really knowledgeable, and they're knocking things out of the ballpark, I would say. And I mean, every year more and more gets done, and it's a pretty magical place. And if you have small children, it's a wonderful children's garden over there. It's a great place to visit.
Great.
I can step a little further on that, and that is that the Gardens have for years had a plant sale, and it has just been skyrocketing. This year they exceeded $50,000 in plant sales, which
Wow.
was up almost over $20,000 from the previous year.
That's
So there's that need, and we're trying to fill that need. And as Bill said, it's the staff over there that makes this happen.
And now, just thinking about it, a real neat little story on how you can work together and get things done. There are some food composters that we have downtown right now, and they're back at Kramer Building. We work with Fleet and Operations Management. Susie Gordon and her folks over at Environmental Sustainability says, I can get these big composters, but I don't have the staff to run them. And I have the couriers that will bring the food scraps from downtown, but I still need someone to do the composting and watch it, because there's a knack to that, and adding some organics, wood chips and such. So we said, sure. So this has been going on now, we're probably 5th or 6th year. So they bought them, we compost, and then we take that soil and put it in the pots that you see downtown. We make our own soil. What's even better is that working with the Gardens on Spring Creek, the annual flowers that we buy thousands or tens of thousands of flowers for downtown. We can't possibly grow them all at Gardens, but we helped. We went in partnership, bought an old hoop house, like a small greenhouse, those Quonset hut styles, and they grow plants for us. So they're always helping us. We try to help them and share that, and then local vendors grow the rest of our plants. But that was something, from 3 different agencies or 3 different departments making something work where, we're not buying as much material, we're keeping everything pretty tight and local, and we're producing a really nice product.
Right, and reducing costs probably at the
And
same
reducing
time.
costs, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great example of some collaboration going on here at the
Mm-hmm.
city, because sustainability, it seems, is really kind of an umbrella over the entire organization, even though there are certain aspects with the name sustainability in the title, like sustainability services, but everybody is contributing to that. And
Well, let me follow up
yeah,
with that, because
sure.
this goes beyond just within the city's organization. We have some outside resources in the way of greenhouses, and we do have to buy some of our product, because Bill's right, we use 30, 40, 50,000 flowers, plants in our system here. And some of those we want to retain, and it would be impossible because we don't have the area. So we've worked out with some of the local greenhouses to actually maintain those over the winter for us. So that goes on to that sustainable practice, I think.
right, that's
And one of the neat things, so I don't know if you've been down to Oak Street Plaza Park, which has the water features, and then the big pots in the middle there. If you would notice them, 3 years ago, they're big banana plants. They're banana. This is the 3rd year that we'll replant them in the downtown core or down in Oak Street area. We expect bananas this summer.
oh wow.
That's what they're telling us, which
right-
would be
it's
pretty
right
wild,
next
wouldn't
to-
it?
Right next to the drunken monkey, so we expect the monkeys.
We'll
to
see
come.
how it all.
Monkeys, yes.
We'll see how it all works out.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
We'll have to keep an eye out for that. You'll have to post that on Facebook.
If that
for us,
happens,
if that happens.
won't-
will.
That's
They
great.
probably won't last long, though.
Right. So getting back to one topic that I wanted to cover with you, you were talking about soil. What about our some of our solid waste reduction efforts? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, there's quite a bit. I mean, and I'd have to, again, I'm going to throw a plug out for Forestry Division, because they chip wood. And years ago, we would be bringing a lot of large wood to the Larimer County landfill. They stopped that practice and now chip wood twice a year or make it into mulch. We use it in all of our parks, medians, streetscapes, wherever we have a chance. PSD uses it. They make quite a bit. So that has been probably the largest diversion of any product so far. But we have, I don't know, we've tried for many years to just get aluminum and plastic in the downtown core for folks to recycle. And that's probably been the hardest challenge all through the 90s, even the early 2000s. But we finally found a product they're called Big Bellies, or solar-powered compactors that you see in the downtown core. I think we have close to 12 or 13. We just placed one at the Museum Discovery, one over at the library. And for the first time in the last 3 years that they've been in, we're actually seeing recycling happen without contamination. And that's always been the biggest challenge for the Parks Department, whether it be at a ball diamond, at a playground, shelters, that folks, we would get, some recycling, but then we'd have other waste in there, food waste that, wasn't worth for us the time and effort to go through. And now actually we're producing, a separate product, and we're able to do a lot more recycling that way. That was a
great.
big change in behavior that we saw.
Yeah.
I can speak to one other. I said technology and new things, and we're always on the lookout. Our downtown crew, who experiences a tremendous amount of the cigarette waste products downtown, found a mechanism by which that product could be recycled. And so we were pretty heavily involved in that until we found out that during that process it produced some particulate matter which was not acceptable to the staff. So we've done away with that, but we're looking for another way to manage that type of thing. So we're always on the lookout for technological advances.
Yeah, that's great. So looks like we're getting close to the end of our time here. Any closing thoughts about how people can learn more about these conservation efforts and how to be a better park user, I guess, when they go out and enjoy
I
the
think
park?
I'll just make the comment that they are your parks. They're not my parks. They're not Bill's parks. And treat them as your own property and be kind to them, and they will be kind to you.
Great advice. How about you, Bill?
Well, we have a plethora of different users, and it's fantastic. And one of the pieces I wanted to bring back too was that all six of our community parks we're the only community in the United States, and perhaps from what we know internationally, that are Audubon certified.
Yeah.
And Audubon certification is a pretty big deal. There's a lot of data that has to be collected. We have to prove that, one, that we're rebuilding or improving wildlife habitat. And we've been able to do that. If you go to City Park, is a great example. You see along the lake that we've established. Years ago when I first started, everything was mowed right down to water lines, lakes, streams. We don't do that anymore. We increase habitat and working with the forestry division, with trees and different plant materials. So all six parks have changed how we do that. We have to, again, resource management. And the resource management, again, we have to show folks that we're recycling. We're looking for landscape materials that we are compostable, and that we're always looking at ways to divert the waste stream and stop throwing things away. Water conservation, water management is huge. So again, every crew chief, technician, seasonal, summertime, hourly worker, here's the message and here's the steps on how we do that. Mm-hmm. And then there's education and outreach, and we have brochures that are at the shops that folks can learn. But we partnered with the local Audubon folks for bird counts. We've gone to schools where kids have helped paint some trash barrels, etc. So it's a big part, just getting everybody kind of involved and sharing knowledge, and then ask questions and then share some more. And we seem to be able to keep going a little further and put some feathers in our cap because we are a world-class community, and Parks Department, we want to be as good as anyone else, and because we got a lot of great folks we work with.
Yeah, so it's great that not only do we know we're great, but other people are telling us we're great, which is even better, right?
Yeah,
it sounds like.
We do pretty good at citizen survey, but so does a lot of. This is a great city to work for, and great product that we get to produce.
That's great. Super. Well, thank you very much. I want to thank my guests, J.R. Snelzer and Bill Werde. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be back next time on Full Circle.